Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Ramadan Reminder, Day 16, Hellfire. We've all heard of this very famous narration when Ramadan's around the corner. It will be shared a lot, it will be spoken a lot, and it would come out in every reminder that we come across about Ramadan. That is how the gates of Hellfire are closed and that of Jannah are opened. But there's actually a further detailed narration that speaks of what does this entail. On the authority of Abu Hurairah, he reported that Rasulullah told him that on the first night of the month of Ramadan, the devils are chained, and the jinns are restrained, and the gates of hellfire are closed, and none of its gates are opened. And the gates of paradise are open, and none of its gates are closed. And the narration doesn't stop there. There will be a caller from the heaven who announced the seeker of good, come near, and the seeker of evil, stop short. And then Allah will have those He saves from hellfire. And that is every single night of Ramadan. It's a hadith that's classified Hasan by Shaykh Albani. And there's actually a very similar narration as well. On the authority of Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, he mentioned about how Rasulullah reported or have said that verily Allah has people saved from hellfire every day and every night of Ramadan. And every servant among them will have their du'as, supplication, answered. What does all these imply? What does it mean to be saved from hellfire during the month of Ramadan? Scholars actually mention about this is to be understood as not only being saved from hellfire during that one single particular month, but it actually means to be saved throughout your entire life, permanently. Imagine fasting one Ramadan is in and of itself enough for you to be saved from hellfire for the rest of your life to come. How much of a blessing it is. Imagine one single Ramadan. And we never knew, or we would never know which Ramadan that we've fasted that Allah has accepted from us and decided to be or to make that Ramadan that we are permanently saved from hellfire. Right? And the narration and speaking of being saved from hellfire, the greatest way to be saved from hellfire is to ask Allah to be protected from it. Right? Just like the narration that I've mentioned about how we would have every supplication answered during this month, what could be better to ask for than to ask for the protection from hellfire? So that's why Allah mentioned in Surah Al-Furqan, one of the most beautiful traits of a believer. Like these are the verses which are called Ibadur Rahman, like the servant of the most merciful, which described a list of traits or characteristics of the slave of Ar-Rahman. And one of those traits Allah mentioned about وَالَّذِينَ يَبِتُونَ لِرَبِّهِمْ سُجَّدًا وَقِيَامًا. And they are the people who prostrate themselves at the middle of the night and standing in prayer. Asking for what? And they are those وَالَّذِينَ يَقُولُونَ رَبَّنَا اصْرِفْ عَنَّا عَذَابَ جَهَنَّمَ. O Allah, O our Lord, avert from us the punishment of hellfire. Inna adabaha kana garama. Indeed, the punishment is ever adhering. When we speak of hellfire, one of the most scariest trait of it is that it will be of torture that is ever on an increase. We will never get used to the punishment of hellfire. Sometimes when we speak of hellfire, sometimes as harsh as the punishment is, sometimes we might fall into thinking that It's a punishment that we will eventually get used to and no longer feel that much of a pain. But hellfire doesn't work quite that way. It will be a punishment that will only be on increase, that we will never get used to. SubhanAllah. And the ayah continue, Innaha sa'at mustaqawra wa muqama. Like, it is indeed and very evil settlement, temporarily or in a long term, as a residence. So even being there for a short term is enough of a punishment for us. So if there's anything I would leave my brothers and sisters to do, particularly for this coming month of Ramadan, is to ask Allah for protection from hellfire. If this is a month that our supplication will be answered, and that this is the month where our Ramadan can possibly be that one Ramadan that we are saved permanently from hellfire, then make sure that this is Ramadan we have asked Allah to protect us from it. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.